Like, what do you want us to say, really? Why are you even here today? Why would you put yourself through this? I have to be here. Armenia 2, Republic of Ireland 1, should have been 3, could well have been 4. World Cup qualification is down the toilet 2 games in. The very reasonable hope that we would at least take it to the last game in Budapest is now fanciful. There is now just a pervading sense of hopelessness around Irish football. We are trapped in this cycle. At least Euro 2028, they have to let us in, so there is that. But, that was kind of all-time low last night is how a lot of people feel. Damien Delaney is going to join us very shortly. Our football show coverage is with thanks to Sky Sports, where you can experience more exclusive live sport than anywhere else. With Sky Sports, Sports Extra, you can watch every live Premier League match this season, and that is across Sky Sports, Premier Sports and TNT. And you can get Sky Sports and Sports Extra on Sky, or you can stream them with Now. So I think we'll just get into it, really. I mean, it kind of doesn't really need analysis. I mean, it was just chaos, wasn't it? It was just chaos. And you kind of thought Hal Grimson, above all else, would bring a certain Icelandic organisation. So he cut a shocked figure in-game, as I'm sure you saw, and then post-game with Tony O'Donoghue and RTE, just dejected. He knows he's done. He knows the campaign is done. He knows this just hasn't worked.
Disastrous performance and result from Ireland, and it puts the whole World Cup dream into the bin, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's close to that. Everything needs to be perfect from now on, and after this performance, it's difficult to be optimistic that we will go to Portugal and win them with a performance like we did today.
What happened tonight? What was the problem?
Well, we need to look at that. I would say almost everything. We were not as solid in defending like we've normally done. We lost a lot of duels. And in possessions, we did just a lot of mistakes, lost the ball in tough areas. And like we've said before, these guys can be quick on the counter, and it's good individuals with individual skills. And they deservedly won us tonight.
They were beaten 5-0 by Portugal just a few days ago. Georgia beat them 9-1 on aggregate. Kosovo beat them 5-2. They're 45 places below Ireland in the FIFA rankings.
Is there a question in this?
Well, the question is, shouldn't Ireland be expecting to do better against teams like that?
Yeah, and that is why we are disappointed, hugely disappointed.
Today, how much of a responsibility do you take? I mean, for example, the 2 changes that you made, bringing Jack Taylor and Chidozie Ogbene on, you took them both off at halftime. Is that on you? Is that decision that you made, that you had to change it at halftime, is that a reflection on you and your management of the team?
Yeah, we wanted to change it tactically first, put 2 strikers up. We thought we needed a goal and early, so we wanted 2 strikers. That was successful 3 days ago. So that is one of the reasons we did this change. Fresh legs again in, and yeah, of course, of substitutions is on me, of course.
Are our players that poor, or are we not getting the best out of them through coaching, through your coaching team?
Yeah, today, of course, I take the blame for this. Of course, I take the blame for this. But the players are the same players we were happy with against Bulgaria, happy with in the second half against Hungary. It's the same players. So, like I say, off day, what it is, we need to look inside and see what we can do differently.
Damien Delaney with us. How you doing?
Come on, Joe, how are you?
Great, actually. Yeah, super. How are you?
Equally as great.
I didn't even know. Like, what? Is there a point even in analysing it? It was just that bad. Like, what do you say about this?
Yeah, I think there is a point in looking at it. He sounds absolutely. That's the first time I've heard that. I didn't see that interview last night. He sounds absolutely broken, and he has to shoulder responsibility. He's a manager. He's the one that picked the team. But where to start? Pretty much everything went wrong last night. In possession, out of possession. We didn't look a coherent unit in either of those factors of the game. You know, out of possession, we looked disjointed. We looked like players that had just been thrown together an hour before the game, or fellas that just met. I think that going with the wingers, with Finnazaz and Chidozie on one wing was probably a a reaction to how well we did in the second half against Bulgaria, and they wanted to keep that positivity, and they thought that we get the ball wide, get crosses in the box. We all spoke before the game about how susceptible these guys were to crosses. They conceded a lot from crosses. But it just didn't materialise. We didn't get the ball to the wide players. They started like a team that were on the receiving end of all the results of Tony O'Donnell, who just mentioned there, the Portugal, the Georgia game, the Kosovo game. They did not start well. But my God, did we give them a leg up in terms of standing off them. I mean, the first 5-10 minutes of the game, we got a few balls forward. The goalkeeper looked a nervous wreck. Like anytime the ball went near him. But we didn't seem to have a plan for that. Every Armenian player that got on the ball looked a nervous wreck. They looked like a team that were beaten 5-0. And when you have to sense that as a team, like as a group of individuals, you have to sense, oh my God, this lot are all over the place. They haven't found their match legs just yet. This is an opportunity. We apply pressure. I don't care what the tactics are. You sense that and you go, we need to get after these because we will get an awful lot of joy. Because we might be nervous, but these guys are 10 times worse than us. So we need to get after these. But we didn't. The press was so disjointed. Where to start with this? Taylor seemed to play up front with Evan Ferguson, and the ball was with the centre backs, and the centre backs would invariably go back to the goalkeeper. And then our two centre forwards, Taylor and Ferguson, would just stop and park at the edge of the box and just let the goalkeeper have a touch. And even in unopposed possession, he shelled it out of play a few times. That guy had no ability to start any sort of an attack. And I think any inkling of a press, he'd have absolutely panicked and probably shanked one into the middle of the park. And then our midfield players should have been backing that up right on top of their midfield players. Then our back four should have been right up in the halfway line, and at least one of the centre backs right in on their attacking midfield players to really condense that pitch and put these guys into a cauldron of pressure where any of the feelings that they have are going to be multiplied by 10. But we didn't do that. For some reason, we just stopped on the edge of the 18-yard box and let the goalkeeper have it. For some reason, our back four were inside our own half on the edge of the centre circle. And for some reason, Josh Cullen didn't know whether to stick or twist. He didn't know whether should I stay and protect the back four or should I go and back up the press. The press wasn't intense enough anyway from the likes of Evan Ferguson, Jack Taylor. It was just an incoherent mess, to be honest with you. Yeah. And the manager has to shoulder responsibility from that. It was an appalling night, one of the worst nights I can remember anyway. Maybe there was worse long ago, but it was self-inflicted. It really was. The two in midfield, I don't get that selection. I just never have. They're not dynamic enough to cover the ground that they've been asked to cover. Josh Cullen plays in the system in Burnley where that midfield is packed and the back four are right up behind him. So there's like a 10-yard gap from the centre backs to Josh Cullen, and then they've got like midfield players, and it's a real tight, compact unit. That's why he never gets exposed. His lack of mobility very rarely gets exposed at Burnley because the gaps aren't huge. If something happens around him, there's somebody close to him that can cover up that. We saw a couple of times last night those midfield players ran off him and he was just treading water. Yeah. Couldn't seem to gallop to get back, and that lack of dynamism was really showing up. So the manager has to shoulder responsibility for that. Knight is the same. I like Knight actually as a player. I think he's industrious. He works hard. He gets about the pitch and he tries his heart out. I can't fault him for that. But the distances were too big. Personally, I stick it on the centre backs. I think it's your responsibility as a centre back to squeeze that pitch. It's your responsibility to as you're squeezing up, tell Josh Cullen, I don't need you. Go, Josh. In you go. Go with the lads. Go, and really push him in. But if you drop off and Josh Cullen looks around and he thinks, Jesus, there's 15 yards back to my centre-backs there and I've got 30 yards to my forward players, you need to stick an extra player in there. And then you don't get to play with wingers. But I think, or you might, even if you played a 4-2-3-1, but playing a flat 4-4-2. But then you could see it. They were just starting to grow in confidence. Yeah. All of a sudden they realised, geez, we're under no pressure here. And they're decent players. And I tell you what, players have such a short memory. In the middle of that game, if a player gets the ball and he has time and space and he turns, he passes it, he goes, oh, something good's happened. The Portugal game is the furthest thing from his memory now. Something good has happened. And then just a wave of optimism came through. And then it was the chance that really sparked him with that nothing ball over the top that Darryl Chase couldn't seem to get back for. Then the pitch gave way, got his feet all mixed up. Queeveen made a save and hit the bar, and then you could just see all of a sudden the stadium went, oh, hang on a minute, there's something here for us. This lot, geez, I thought we were bad. This lot are in worse shape than us. And their manager with his antics on the sideline was just energising the whole bloody stadium. And that was it then, and we couldn't wrestle it back.
Yeah, couldn't agree with all that more, you know. because I was making notes as I went, and I sort of abandoned it at a certain point. But the first 15 minutes, for sure, they were so nervous, so edgy. As you mentioned, 105th in the world. They've won 3 matches in 20. They've conceded 21 goals in the last 5. Coach has just taken charge of his second game. There's the early Ferguson chance. So then you're like, God, our keepers are a nervous wreck as well. I've never seen a team be rehabilitated so gently by an opposition. It was like, you just take your time. Like, even of everything you said there, and I will go through different parts of it. It strikes me the biggest crime is the press and how disjointed it was. And this is very, very surprising because if nothing else, if you looked at Hallgrímsson and Iceland, it was organised. It was 4-4-2. It was spaces. It was, we're really compact. And even today in the Premier League, you see 4-4-2 out of possession. It's sticky. It's not like oh my God, they're playing 4-4-2. It can be a tricky thing to break down. That was the thing I just couldn't understand, because that takes no real talent. I'm not sure it takes huge courage against an Armenia either. Like, the pitch is bad. You're letting the keeper, like, the pitch is bad. You're not even pressing them. And it got to a point in the second half where it was just complete chaos. And by that I mean, like, there was a moment where even Ida says, okay, I really should, we're 2-0 down here. Our World Cup's going up in flames. I really should press the keeper this time. But there's no one, like, it's 25 yards plus to Cullen Knight midfield territory. And it's honestly another 15 to 20 to our defence. And, you know, you mentioned the back four, the back three as it was. Centre halves, it's their responsibility. I was thinking, that's so basic. It's everyone's, like, if Cullen had a bit more, like, force of personality, he'd be turning around saying, what do you do? Up! Or if Ida... And Ferguson, like, he's young, I know. Why aren't they not turning around? Where are you behind us? We're trying to press it. Like Hallgrímsson on the touchline, like, he should be just apoplectic. For a professional team, like, that's stunning. The press alone is stunning.
I agree, 100%. I think that, much was made during the week that we have a lot of club captains, fellas that are leaders at their clubs, and we showed up there tonight. I think a huge part of the problem, and the manager had got this horrifically wrong, was a lot of those players looked absolutely fatigued, I'd say, after about 20 minutes. Nathan Collins in particular, he was gassed, I'd say, after 30 minutes. The quick turnaround playing Saturday, Tuesday to travel. He obviously was in the warm-up, and I would imagine, you'll never find this out, but I'd say in the warm-up, he's thinking, geez, my legs are heavy here, I'm not feeling great. So all of a sudden then you just, like, you start dropping off to protect yourself. And once they got one ball in behind us, the 2 centre-backs just went, oh my God. Like, those guys are quick, reasonably quick. I mean, they're not lightning quick, but they're willing runners in behind. And then all of a sudden they just went, oh, we have to protect him behind. And then the gaps just got huge. And then it was pandemonium. The whole thing just fell apart. There was no leadership. There was nobody to say, hang on a sec, lads, this can't possibly be happening. Like, somebody needed to get hold of that team and in a vociferous way and organise us. I mean, it wouldn't take much just to say, look, like you said, Josh Cullen, Nathan, I've got 30 yards in front of me and 30 yards behind me, and I've got 4 players around me. I am dead in the water here. I cannot do anything for it. You've got to back me up, pal. I've got to get in the front foot and get on the number 6. But if that ball gets spun around the corner and behind me, I need to know you're going to be there. I have to know that you're going to be there. And Nathan Collins then squeezes in. And if that ball gets spun over the top, Queeveen, you have to be out. You have to sweep up that ball. And it just wasn't there. And then the confidence just drained out of the team. I think he got it wrong, the selection. And I know it's easy in hindsight, but a lot of players looked absolutely fatigued and there's no reason for that, because one of the points that I made here in my notes is he left a lot of players out of summer internationals because he was saying, this is the one. We don't want to over fatigue our players. We need to, we left all the championship players out. Now we need to shorten their season, and we're planning to come in at the start of the season and be all guns blazing. And then we're planning to be in the US next summer. So I'm selecting my squad accordingly. And we're only 5 games into the season. Players should be at their peak. You've had a good preseason. You've had a good 5 games at your club. You're coming in now. You should be. I mean, there's no excuse for you not to be in top form, or physically, mentally, emotionally. The wear and tear of the season hasn't quite kicked in yet. Josh Collins' situation at Burnley hasn't quite kicked in yet. They're still a new Premier League team. He should be full of adrenaline. But that was as disjointed, and the manager and the staff have to take that one. They absolutely have to, and he shoulders all of that responsibility. They got it horrifically wrong, and barring a miracle, no. I mean, that will be the end of Heimir Hallgrimsson.
Yeah, I think he's done. I don't even have like the appetite to let's run him out of town ASAP. You know, like it's just like whatever. Get rid of him now. Get rid of him at the end of the campaign. I mean, are any of us looking forward to another FAI managerial hunt? But I still don't, because these are such basics, right? Where I'd have a bit of sympathy for Hallgrimsson is I think it would have been very difficult for him to anticipate just how fatigued some of those players were. Like Nathan Collins is 24 years old, start of the season. That would have been, unless Collins came to you and said, I don't know, I'm wrecked. You know, or maybe he's carrying an injury. Yeah. Maybe we'll find. But in fairness to Hallgrimsson, I'd say nobody could have predicted that you would have had to make wholesale changes for that reason this early in the season. But again, how do you account for him being a very good coach and Iceland able to do it and these things not being complicated, but then for this team of Premier League and Championship players that even on the pitch they can't react to, our backline are dropping off. Well, we all have to drop off then. We mightn't feel good about it, but we have to stick together. This is what I can't understand. Just the inadequacy here, and that Hallgrimsson has done this with other teams, and it's not complicated. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't give you an answer to that. I don't think the manager will be able to give you an answer to that. I don't think he set the team up to do what they did last night. I don't. I think that he had a different game plan in mind, and he was screaming from the sideline, and he realised that, you know, Nathan, you have to squeeze the pitch, but he couldn't. He couldn't squeeze the pitch. He just physically could not get up because he was terrified of one ball in behind, and in the second half there was about 10 went in behind him. It was not pretty, you know, when that ball got lumped in behind him. The disallowed goal was just sums up the picture perfectly. If the goalkeeper gets it and he slides one through into the number 6, Josh Cullen is stood in about a 60 by 60 on his own, and he can't even see the defenders in shot. He turns, slides one into number 10 on the backside of Josh Cullen, and the defenders just come into shot, and they're like 5-6 yards deeper in the centre circle, and like, you cannot account for that. Like any player that plays at centre back, you have to know that. If I was playing at centre back and my legs had gone, I'd be saying, Josh, just stay, get the lads in, stay back.
I was going to ask that, even though it wouldn't feel very good doing it against Armenia, and especially if you're chasing a goal. But I presume at a certain point there, you just have to face reality and say, I'm sorry, everyone, we're goosed back here. I know that's not what you want to hear, but our high press days are over. If nothing else, we're staying compact, and we'll go from there. That's the only solution in that circumstance.
Absolutely, right? 100%. That is what he should have done. He said, let's drop off, let's get narrow, get into a 4-4-2 shape, and we'll just have to counter-attack these, and we'll get to half-time, and then the manager has to make a decision, like, do I freshen this team up, or the manager sees what's happening, right? And the manager's looking at the team going, why are they dropping off? Why are they getting so compact? Okay, they're obviously doing it so the players are feeling this, so I need to change it. If I'm not happy with this approach, I need to change it. But for Nathan Collins as captain, now he's only 24, but Josh Cullen is captain at Burnley, experienced player. For those experienced players to let that unravel in the manner that it did is incredible, really, genuinely. Now, maybe they felt that we couldn't do that because it was Armenia and the weight of expectation, and we shouldn't be doing this. Well, if that's the case, Nathan Collins just has to squeeze the pitch, just has to. But he could.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
It's one or the other, and we just got caught in like, there must have been 50, 60 yards between Evan Ferguson and Nathan Collins for a large portion of that game. And I don't care. You play against any football team and you give them that amount of time and space and comfort to build their confidence and forget about that Portuguese result and all the results they've had recently. I don't think that was a plan from the manager. I just don't think he was expecting it. And then mentally we just looked dishevelled, really, and it wasn't good. And the manager has to shoulder responsibility for that.
So you think he's done, and appropriately so?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, listen, he was brought in with a specific goal in mind, and that was to get us close to World Cup qualification. He had a year to change the psychology of the team, to build back up the confidence. And that's why I was so bullish, because everything I saw up until last night, you know, I liked the way he spoke in press conferences. I liked the way he set his teams up. I liked the fact that we were pragmatic. I liked the fact that, you know, he spoke the truth in interviews afterwards. He accepted responsibility. He accepted the flaws of the team. And I thought, well, part of the reason, well, the first part of getting better is accepting those flaws, and I just liked what I heard. But then last night happens, and that's that. I'm sorry, man, you can't defend that, you can't accept that. You know, we're all but done, really. It's just a matter of seeing it out. The only consolation is it's going to be over in about 8 weeks, in November, and then it falls back on the FAI to try and find somebody else.
I'm taking that 6 months off.
Yeah, which is not going to be pretty. You know,
there's no value in them chopping Hal Grimson before the next window, I presume? Or does it even matter either way?
I don't think it matters, to be honest with you.
Because you're only bringing in a caretaker. It's not like, we've got...
John O'Shea will get it, won't they? You know what I mean? They're not going to...
Yeah, there you go.
They're not even going to fire Hal Grimson. They'll probably just put him on gardening leave and say, listen, you can just stay at home. We'll pay you the remainder of your contract. And John's going to take over. Will that make much of a difference?
No.
Probably not.
It's only worth getting rid of him now if you have the next man for the job and you allow him to get a head start. But quite clearly they won't have that yet.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to let it get to November and then you're going to go through the same process over and over again. The scary thing, it was only 12 months or whatever it is. And it took 8 months to appoint him. So after it was 8 months, it was a long period of time. So after an 8-month search, that's the best you could come up with. So I don't think the FAI have any more money to be able to pitch it a little bit higher in terms of the managers they're getting. So it'll probably be somebody in-house. I would imagine John O'Shea will just end up getting it and trying to rebuild, but there's an awful lot of bleakness around Irish football at the moment. That Will Clark review that came out about the academies and that the impacts of Brexit haven't even hit our senior men's national team yet. So unless something is done, and even if it is done, I mean, how long will it take to get all these academies online, and then you got to get the kids through? It might not be in our media lifetime, Joe, to be honest with you, by the time it comes back around. So I don't know, man. I don't have any answers for you right now, other than the players need to show a reaction of some description. But gauging on how fragile we were mentally leading into this, that a result like that, it's nigh on impossible, I'd say, to come back from that. I think the players are going to be too stung to be able to muster a response to that. And I would imagine that this group just peters out and hope to God that we can beat Armenia at home, Portugal win all their games, and then, if the goal difference is reasonable, we're going to the last game in Budapest, but it's going to require a minor miracle. Us beating Hungary by 3 or 4-0, which obviously isn't going to happen. So, I think that's that, Joe, to be honest with you. And I can't tell you how crestfallen I am. I can't tell you how upset I was last night sitting watching that, because I wanted so bad for us to be in contention, to see progress from the senior men's team. Because when you look at the shit show behind the scenes, it's tough to see it getting better.
I had even thought, even very much in spite of that mess behind the scenes, and it is such a mess behind the scenes. I mean, the FAI it's really just in a very, very dark place at the moment. I had still just assumed, by dint of Stephen Kenny, for better or worse, just getting 30, 40 caps into all these guys, even if all of it wasn't great experience. I just thought collectively, for having those 30, 40 caps now, they'll just be better than this. And that, I still sort of think that should have been the case. I just thought you just can't not improve on that account. And like Caoimhin Keller, Premier League, and to be fair to him, by the way, an oasis of brilliance in amongst all of this. Caoimhin Keller, excellent. Jake O'Brien, Premier League established. Nathan Collins, Premier League. Darragh O'Shea, Premier League last year and now upper echelons of the Championship. Ogbene, Premier League very recently. Cullen, Premier League. Knight, Championship, playing every game. Manning, Championship. Taylor, Azaz, doing good things in the Championship. Evan Ferguson, Premier League Serie A. Like that's actually not it's not horrendous, No.
That's why it should have happened last night. That's why the manager has to show that responsibility. That group of players is better than what they showed last night, and for whatever reason they didn't put in a performance. For whatever reason they couldn't carry out what the manager was looking for, and those players have enough experience now to understand the type of game that it is. That we started really well. Evan Ferguson nearly scored. We have to sense this, that these guys are there for the taking. So we have to apply pressure here. We have to, magnify all these feelings of doubt that this Armenia team have after the results they've had. And we didn't. And like any good team, we invited them back into the game. They got their tails up, and then we couldn't muster a response. We just could not do it. And the goals that went in were diabolical. Absolutely diabolical.
Where are you on, and it will invariably, it will be a theory now which will be trotted out. The modern player can't think on the hoof, can't adapt, need to be coached how to go to the toilet in the morning. Like, do you subscribe to that? Is that a viable kind of theory as to explain why they couldn't adapt?
Yes, there's some merit in that. And, it's not as black and white as that's not a yes or no question. I think that the players that were on the pitch last night didn't carry out what they were instructed to do. So if they didn't carry out what they were instructed to do, then they have to do something, and they did nothing, right? So I can't imagine for a second that the manager set the team up to do that. That he asked the back four to be that deep, that he asked for those gaps to be as big as what they were. So the players clearly couldn't take on the instruction that they were given pre-match. And by the way, I'm not absolving the manager's responsibility there. His job to get a clear message across to the players and to put them in a frame of mind that they can execute, that there is no doubt. And then it's his job to recognise, Jesus, this isn't going well, and then to make a change. But I think a lot of those players have enough experience to sense the fact that was a team that was there for the taking, and they didn't. I do think there was merit in what you're saying there in terms of young players want to be coached to within an inch of their life, and they want instruction in every situation. But also players have to be somewhat clued in and understand the game.
I find it hard to believe, to be honest. I don't really buy the theory too much. I find it hard to believe they would all reach the level they've reached without having a bit about them and to be able to think on the foot. I don't know. It just doesn't tally for me that like you'd reach Premier League level and be like, I don't know what to do. I just get told what to do at every moment of every game. That doesn't ring true for me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's why I said that's an extremely grey area, because managers will put game plans in place and they'll say, hey, listen, out of possession, I need you to be in this position because we want to hog up the middle of the pitch. We're going to let them go wide. And if it goes wide, you press from this angle, right? And all that has to be adhered to, and in possession, the manager will say to you, you have certain amount of options. This is the pass I'm looking for. This is your first option. If that's not on, there's your second option. There's your third option, but he's giving you options. He's not saying that you have to play this pass. And if you don't play this pass, you're not going to be in the team. Now, obviously, when you get into the attacking third, you do afford the players an awful lot more freedom, because you don't want to coach the players to that degree in the attacking third, because you want the brilliance of Finn Azaz to come out. You want him to feel like he can take 2-3 touches, beat somebody. Ryan Manning the same. He's such a naturally gifted footballer. So you're giving the players parameters or an outline or kind of parameter that they can work within, but then they have a certain amount of freedom in that. But if a lot of those players require coaching, they certainly got it before the game, but they didn't carry it out.
Yeah. Two last very quick things then. That midfield problem, the Knight and Cullen problem, I suppose, and you talked about how the organisation of the Burnley team, for instance, compensates for the shortcomings of Cullen. And like there was a painful moment for him last night where I'd say he was on the shoulder of a guy carrying the ball for about 30 yards and just couldn't gain the yard he needed to make the tackle. He just doesn't have that mobility. I don't see anyone coming over the horizon. So there's a fair chance next year it's the same too. So are we just going to have to, almost as a rule, we need three in midfield who really don't stray or do very much. They just sit there. Is that the only way to compensate? And tight spaces and all that stuff. There's no other real solution. Like, we can't magic something up here.
No, absolutely not. You're right. You got to get a third player in there, and you should have kept Jack Taylor closer to the midfield as opposed to being closer to Evan Ferguson. Or you go with a box in midfield, so you got four in there, and then you allow Ryan Manning kind of freedom of one wing and Jacob Ryan the freedom of the other. But then that causes problems because teams will get you in the wide area. So if you've got midfield players that can't run, or aren't capable of physically meeting the requirements of modern football, then you got to get them help in there. And two players in a 40 by 40 square isn't working. Well, then we got to get a third player in there, because then the distances are smaller, right? You also got to get your back four squeezed higher. So you got to say to Nathan Collins, you cannot let a 15, 20, 25, 30 yard gap develop between you and Josh Cullen. I don't care if we're all squeezing together or we're all dropping off. But we can have the forwards doing one thing, the midfield players doing nothing, and then the back four doing something totally different as well. And it's that incoherence that I don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it wasn't rectified. And I don't know, was it fatigue? I don't know why the manager didn't change it. I don't know what they were saying. Without being in the pre-match team meeting of what he was looking for, I don't know. But it certainly wasn't that. And the players, the manager, the staff all have to shoulder responsibility for that. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And you said at the top, by the way, because I didn't talk to you obviously after the Hungary game, you were still bullish enough after the Hungary game. The first half hadn't worried you to the extent that you were sensing crisis here.
No, I said that like in the show afterwards. I said that, like, listen, it wasn't a great start, right? And you can't live your life like that, and it's not sustainable, right, to play football like that. But we recognised it, we addressed it, and we got something out of the game, right? So it's not a case of like, you kind of hope that that was a one-off and that was just nervousness of the opening night of a big night, hungry at home, and we just got caught a little bit cold. But no problem. We're going to address that. But we showed the character, the resolve, and had the work ethic to get back in it. So it's a positive night. It was. And if you back it up with a positive performance and a positive result, a win against Armenia, where you win 2 or 3-0 and you've strangled them and you've given them nothing, then you go, well, listen, that's a good team now. We showed a lot of mettle. Yeah. But we didn't. We went the other way. We showed absolutely nothing in Armenia. And I was as surprised as anyone that happened. I mean, you can lose games of football and you can be a touch unlucky and refereeing decisions can go against you and it can just be one of those nights and that happens. But that was an absolute complete breakdown of every system we had. And it came at the worst possible time. And I would imagine that the staff are having their meeting today and they are just as dumbfounded as what we are as to why. But I will say that, and I'm a defender and I played at centre back, so I would take the responsibility for that. That if I dropped off, I was playing centre back and I dropped off that much and I allowed those spaces to appear, I think it's on the centre backs, because you're the deepest ones, you're seeing the whole thing. So it's your job to realise that the forwards have gone and pressed. The midfield players need to go with them. We need to go with them, and Queevy needs to come with us. If I can't go, I'm saying, Josh, stop them going. Yeah. Let Evan go on his own and have a little press. But get Chidozie narrow, get Finazaz narrow, get Jack Taylor in the 10. We've 2 6s. So now there's only ever 10 yards between each player. And let's just get set and get organised and say to the manager, look, we don't feel we're getting any joy here, Gaffer. So, we need to change something. And it might be the fact that Nathan needs to come off. But look, it wasn't pretty, and the fallout will roll on from this for a very, very, very long time. But I'm as low as I've ever been, Joe, to be honest with you, man, watching football. I mean, just as low as I think I could possibly get.
Yeah, no, it's really grim. The other question was, do you see any obvious and attainable candidate? For instance, I have no doubt people will look to Damien Duff. As one. Do you see anything out there?
Well, you got Damien Duff and Robbie Keane, and we only hope that either of those have some sense of patriotic save the day feeling for our country, and they come in and they do it, because the biggest hurdle you're going to have is the wages, and that's just life. We cannot pay the going rate for an upper tier, anywhere close to an upper tier international manager. So unless Damien Duff or Robbie Keane have a patriotic sense to come in and take a job for the salary that they can pay, then I don't see anyone else coming in from the outside. Right. The obvious is John O'Shea will just get ascension up to that job.
Is it too soon for those three, all three of them? Is it too soon?
No, I think we could do with Damien Duff's energy. I think we could do with his stern, no nonsense style. I'm not sure he wants it, to be honest with you. I'm not sure he would. After his Shells experience, he probably needs a bit of time off. But I think his attitude, his drive for football that he has, and he clearly has it. I mean, that's what this international team needs. You know what I mean? Just a real man's man in charge, driving this team, setting standards and making sure nobody falls below them. Robbie's, working away in Europe. I'm not sure he wants to. He's got European football. He's competing in a reasonable league. I don't know what his aspirations are in management, but I would imagine that the Ireland job is fairly close to the top of his list.
See, there is the carrot, I suppose, of guaranteed Euro 2028 inclusion. So you get
right, but Joe, you want to go to Euro 2028 in fighting form. You want to go there with a team that you think that we won't be embarrassed.
But,
on home soil.
That Premier League Championship team, I still don't understand why they were embarrassed. There's enough. There's enough there, no?
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I take that back. I agree with you. You're right. There's probably enough there, but I just don't know if Damien Duff or Robbie Keane want that job. They're the only two that will come to mind. We're not getting anyone from the outside coming in for the salary that we've had. Well, there was a reason it took 8 months to appoint Heimir Helbrinson.
Yeah. Sorry, I was interrupting you there. The Duff FAI relationship is odd.
Yeah.
Is it the other thing? I mean, they should raise it to the ground and
Yeah, no, he did roll back on that.
He
In
did,
fairness to
he
him.
did.
He did apologise
He
for
did.
that, and I think that was just kind of speaking off the cuff, or made kind of a remark that he didn't really think
But
through.
I don't think he rates them. I don't think he rates them.
No, and I wonder would him coming in there upset too many people? You know, would they say no, we can't be dealing with this? You know, we saw what he was like at Shelbourne. You know, in terms of the media and the way he carried on. I don't think it's the worst shout in the world. I don't know if Robbie would be interested in that job. But the likelihood is that John O'Shea will just end up getting it, to be honest with you, and he'll have to hold fort and do the best he can.
Yeah. Like, you're putting in a coach with no experience there, no management experience. It's that
I agree.
you know, everyone loves John O'Shea in this country, and hopefully he ascends to the job at some stage. But like, that's a wing and a prayer stuff, you know. Would you have any, if they gave it to Duff, do you think it would cross their mind he's walked out on 2 jobs now?
Yeah, but I think Duff operates at a high level mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
You know, he's all in. You know, I met him a couple of years ago at a charity thing, and I said, "Are you getting on?" And he said, "I'm stressed, man. Jeez, like it's full on. It's 20," and you could see it in his eyes.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? And you could see that he was in the zone, and I couldn't match his intensity, even just having a casual conversation, you know, because you could see that guy is just living on the rev limiter, which might not be no bad thing for us. International football is different in terms of the windows. He'd have an awful lot of time off, and it would become much more thing. Whereas I think the day-to-day rigors of going into Shelbourne probably got on top of him a little bit. But also he'll have learned from that Shelbourne experience. You know, he realizes maybe I can't go to those lengths, goes as deep into the well as what I went with Chels. I need to be able to manage that stress load better, because nobody's getting the best of me when I'm that stressed out, or when I'm operating on the rev limiter, you know, because I'm just too intense. So again, on reflection, will he change as a person, change as a manager, and say, look, I need to manage that better? And I'm sure he's more than capable of self-reflection and saying, look, this is where I went wrong at Chels, and maybe next job I'll be a little bit better. So you might be getting a better version of Damien Duff than what you got at Chels. So it's a tough one, Joe. I'm not sure where we go from here. It's still a little bit raw. The dust needs to settle.
I hear you. I'm loath to ask you this. Obviously, your relationship with him isn't good, but he's going to be mentioned over the next few days, and he may also have that patriotic instinct. Is Roy Keane?
I don't think he'd want it either, to be honest with you. I think he's got a good gig where he is. If Roy feels like he's been out of management 12 years now, I'm not sure he wants to go back into it. He seems quite content doing the things that he's doing. He seems quite happy. Does he want to go back to that dark place of dealing with players and stuff? So I'm not sure he'd want it. It would be a good PR thing in terms of, you know, Roy Keane coming back. You know, everybody would be excited. And I do see those comments, you know, recently, regularly. You know, when Man United are doing poorly, you always see someone say, "Get Roy in." You know, he knocks some sense into him, and you're going, I'm not sure he's exactly what you need when confidence is low, because he's not going to come in and pick you up and get the mood high and get players performing, you know. So it's a tough one, Joe. I don't see that, to be honest. He's been out of management for 12 years now, and I just don't see that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think we're done.
Not much more you can do, is like,
no.
You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, it's such a mess, you know. But I think the next couple of days now, the manager Heimir, he'll start. You know, like you could see in that Tony Donahue interview, like he hadn't processed it. I think he was in shock. His voice sounded like he was in shock, and I think he'll need to process that. He'll need to sit down and analyze everything of what went wrong, why his team played in the manner that they did. And if he feels like he's gone as far, I mean, he could walk, to be honest with you. I think it's you know, he's not going to hang around here and just see out his time. But while there's always a chance that we might go to Budapest having to win 4-0, I think he probably will stay in the job.
Yeah, okay. Thanks very much. That was great, Damien. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.